Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to NLTI. My name is Mansi. I'm going to be your guide, your mentor, and your friend for this session. All right, so we are about to end the first month of 2026, and I'm sure that that you have started preparation for your CLAT exam. And one very important component of your CLAT exam is the is the general knowledge and the current affairs section, right? It has a lot of weightage. And what we have observed from the PYQ analysis is that usually we get questions that are based around something that has happened in the past 1 year of of the exam, right? That is something which we have observed. Any legal developments, any issues that are related to international relations, anything, geopolitical issues, everything is important and everything is relevant. So if you stay up to date with what all is happening around you, that will make your preparation much more easier, right? And just to ease that entire process for you, just to make sure that you understand what all topics, what all current affairs are actually relevant to your preparation, we have hosted this session today. So, in today's session, we are going to quickly go through some really important recent legal, political, international developments that has happened in the past 1 month, right? So, without any further delay, we'll quickly begin and we'll just understand all the current affairs of January 2026, which can be directly tested in your CLAT 2027 exam. All right, so let's get started. All right. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first is the Indian and European Union Free Trade Agreement. I am sure if you are reading newspapers, if you're following news, you must be aware of the same. It is also something which is known as mother of all deals, right? And something which is of high significance for India's economic growth as well. So, India and European Union Free Trade Agreement, what exactly it is? So, India and European Union basically they have decided to reduce or remove taxes on import and export that is going to happen between these two organizations, right? So European Union, basically, if you know, is an organization which has under it around 40 to 50 European nations, and India does a lot of import and export with a lot of European countries, and a lot of taxes, a lot of import and export duty otherwise has to be paid to both these organizations for conducting any sort of trade. Just to ease that entire process, finally, this both India and European Union have come to this common consensus that they are going to, let's say, like I just mentioned, remove or reduce the taxes that has to be paid. Now, originally, this entire negotiation and discussion it started around 2003, and um, it was a lot of discussion happened around the same, but the negotiations failed and all the negotiations were stopped in around 2014. All of it revived in 2022, and finally in January 2026 the free trade agreement has been decided, has been agreed upon by India and Union, right? So now let's understand what is going to be the effect of the same, how, what exactly has been decided under the same. So according to this trade agreement, India is going to reduce or remove import and export duty on around 96 to 99% of European goods, whereas European Union is going to remove import export duty on around 99% of Indian goods, which means a lot of economic growth we can expect in India, right? And a lot of um, exchange of economies, exchange of trade that we can witness, right? So now what exactly is going to happen, how it is going to affect both the markets, let's quickly understand, right? So in European exports, we usually have agri-food products, pharmaceutical products, precision machineries, and a lot of automobile exchange that usually happens. India usually exports textiles, fisheries, chemicals, footwear, and other industry products, which will see a lot of there is going to be a lot of trade, and it's going to be easier for both the economies overall, right? Especially, India used to impose a lot of import duty on foreign cars, European cars, right? Which is, of course, something you will also see that all thanks to the free trade agreement that will also be relaxed. So it is going to be a great trade relation which we are going to witness, and both the economies will be benefited from the same, right? Moving ahead, the next current affair that you definitely should know about is the BRICS 2026 chairmanship. So India has assumed the chairmanship of the upcoming 18th BRICS summit. So if you know about BRICS, so BRICS is an organization which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, right? So all these countries, they come together and they work together towards social, economic development of each other, right? And in BRICS now we also have countries like Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, as Egypt also have been made full members of BRICS now. So the 18th summit of BRICS is supposed to happen this year in 2026, which is also going to be 20th anniversary of BRICS, by the way, right? So India is going to be hosting the same, and India is going to be the chairman. India has assumed chairmanship, right, for the same. Now, the theme of 18th summit of BRICS is building resilience, innovation, cooperation, and sustainability. For the same, right, India's role is going to be, of course, of hosting the entire chairmanship, in hosting the entire summit, setting the agenda of the same, right? Deciding the entire theme and agenda, and of course, to execute the entire summit seamlessly. So it is going to be one very important event that is going to happen, right? And we've seen this a lot of times that anytime India is host to any such event, right, automatically it becomes really, really important for CLAT, right? So anything that happens, any sort of, um, you know, anything that happens around that summit or that event can be directly tested in CLAT as well. So first, of course, understanding that India is going to host that summit is very important, and whenever the summit is going to happen in the in 2026, all the events related to that summit will also be really, really important for you to take a note of while preparing for your CLAT examination. So make sure that you are aware of the same, right? It basically shows India's global voice. So that is something which is really, really important, right? Minister of External Foreign and External Affairs uh, has also launched the logo of BRICS 18th Summit on 13th of January, right? All right. Now, moving ahead, something really important, really interesting is that a draft on online obscenity rules has been introduced by the Indian government. Now, see, we live in the era of internet. In fact, we live in the era of AI now, right? So a lot of things circulate on the internet, and of course, we have Information Technology Act of 2000, which regulates everything that happens in the cyberspace. But still, we need better rules, we need better regulations, better policies to control and basically prevent usage of obscene content on the internet. For the same, we do not have any specific legislation so far, but a very recent legal development that has happened in January 2026 is that the online obscenity rules have been introduced by the government. And in that uh, obscenity rules, what is something that we can definitely highlight is that labels have been given as per the age. So now the content that is going to be on the internet, so first of all, it's a draft that has been introduced. It's not a law so far, right? It's a draft that has been introduced. It's not a law. Once it will become law, there can be a lot of changes that you will see in the cyberspace, right? But what is the draft exactly suggesting? What can you expect? Like I mentioned, the online content will be divided on the basis of age, Just the way it is in movies, you'll see that whenever you watch a movie, there are usually labels around the scene, right? There are labels given. So there are different labels that are given. Label U basically indicates that the content is appropriate for all ages. Then you have label U/A 7 plus, which basically shows that the content is suitable to watch for children who are above, or for anyone who's above the age of 7 years. Then you have label U/A, which 13 plus, and U/A 16 plus, which basically indicates that people who are above the age of 13 or 16, they can also watch the content. And then you have label A, which means adult only content. So based on just the way it is done in the movies, you will see that online content, the law, basically the draft, it suggests that the content should be divided, or should be, there should be age based labels that should be given to the content, right? Any sort of um, obscene content, and also the definition of obscene content has been given. So any content which is promoting violence, any strong language, any sexual behavior, anything of that sort, if it is transferred, or it's transmitted, or it is shared, then of course regulations around the same are made, and the term obscene has been defined in detail, has been given a detailed definition and explanation in the draft rules. So one thing that we have observed in CLAT usually is that either in the legal reasoning section, or in the GK current affairs section, we somehow get questions asked. We can get questions which are around any sort of new laws that have been introduced in the past 1 year. Right? So if you know that any such law has been introduced, it is not a law so far, right? The rules, basically the draft of the same has been introduced. So any sort of legal development that has happened, it automatically becomes really important for your CLAT exam. So if you know that any such law has been introduced, you should know the in and outs of the entire legislation, or the entire draft rules, and it is going to be extremely useful for you for your preparation, right? All right. Moving ahead with something really interesting again, is that the IMF, International Monetary Fund, has basically projected the growth, India's annual economic growth. And surprisingly, it is something which is, it is something which has shown that India will have a significant high growth this year as compared to previous years, and also as compared to the following years that are going to come, right? So it has basically projected that India's growth is going to be around 6.4%. It is going to be around 7.3% this year. There will be an increase in overall GDP, right? And it has also been projected that in the subsequent year, in the financial year of 2026-27, it is going to decrease. It is going to be a little lower than this ongoing year, right? It's going to be around 6.4%. So it is something which has been projected by the IMF, and it is, like I mentioned, India is a very dynamic economy, and from the past few years we've observed that India has shown a good increase in the GDP, and the overall growth area as well, right? So it is something which has to be taken note of. Also, the fact that India's growth rate has been projected more than that of China, which is again a very important aspect that you have to take a note of, right? So the forecast or the projection, it sort of shows that it's going to be a good year for India, right? Again, any such projections, um, any such information that is given by the international organizations around India becomes important for CLAT, right? It basically, see, CLAT is not restricted to just law. So anything that is happening in the area of sports or economics or finance, anything, all of it becomes important. And when any such information is given by an international organization, it becomes important. It becomes quite relevant for your entire preparation. And it is also similar to the projected growth rate that was given by RBI. RBI has also projected growth for this year of around 7.4%. which is 7.4%, and IMF has projected it to be 7.3%. So it's quite similar. So it basically shows that it can be a good year, right? Again, a very important highlight from this month. Okay, another important current affair is the ISRO's PSLV project, the mission that basically couldn't do well, right? So on January 12th, right, the ISRO has launched PSLV C62, and that C62 was carrying around 16 satellites, out of which one satellite was EOS-N1, right? It was a satellite which has been developed by DRDO, right? And an important satellite that is usually considered. Now, the first stage went really well on January 12th. The second stage of the entire mission also went really well. In the third stage, some anomalies were detected, right? And after this third stage, the the satellites, the PSLV, it basically could not deviate from its intended orbit, and the mission, it sort of faced a failure, right? The orbit was not achieved, and the entire PSLV C62 mission, it sort of faced a failure. And this is probably the second PSLV mission by ISRO that has failed, right? So again, important current affair, important update from ISRO this year, or in the month of January, is that the ISRO's PSLV-C62 mission, it has failed in the third stage. All right. Also, you might get a question around from where the mission or the PSLV was launched. So it was launched from Sriharikota, Sriharikota Center, right? So this is again something important to take a note of. All right, moving ahead, again, India has India has finally witnessed its first paperless district court, right? So, and where is that first paperless district court? It's in Kalpetta in Wayanad in Kerala, right? It is the first district court of the country which has gone all online. So everything from filing, from evidences, from judgments and orders, everything, or from your proceedings also that is going to happen, it will be done online, no paper, and not online exactly, it will be all done in digital form, and nothing, no paper is going to be used. It's going to be completely paperless initiative that is there, right? So everything is there. Also, a lot of focus will be done on AI integration in the regular processes. Now, what does that really mean? By AI integration, it basically means that a lot of tools and softwares probably will be used by the courts, right, for anticipating the questions that can be there, for reading or transcribing of files that are going to be there, and any sort of questions or queries that probably the litigants also have from the judiciary. AI support can be taken for the same, right? AI is going to be there for support, not for the entire execution of the judicial system, right? But a lot of AI integration will be used. So basically, a great digital initiative by judiciary. This was inaugurated, this district court was inaugurated by the Chief Justice himself. This has happened in this month. So you might get a question that which is going to be the first paperless district court of India. So it's going to be Kalpetta in Wayanad uh, in Kerala state, right? All right. Okay. Next is the SOAR initiative, the Skilling for AI Readiness. Now, we can, of course, it's pretty much evident that, like I mentioned, we are in the era of AI, and there is a lot of focus that the government is paying towards AI, right? So now this SOAR initiative otherwise was launched in July 2025, right? So probably when you were preparing for last year's, if you were preparing for last year's CLAT also, you might have come across the same. Now, what is this SOAR initiative and how it is relevant in January 2026? Let's just quickly understand. So now this SOAR initiative is, of course, introduced by the government, which is going to provide comprehensive education around artificial intelligence to students who are in the class 6 to 12th, right? And this is done in accordance with the National Education Policy of 2020, right? So this was otherwise launched, like I mentioned, in July 2025. However, till December 2025, we had around 1.6 lakh subscribers to this program. In the month of January, there has been seen a significant rise in the number of subscribers, and now the number of subscribers have become 2.11 lakhs. So this has been so far the highest increase after the introduction or inauguration of this program. So highest in number of subscribers is the state of UP, then we have state of Maharashtra, and then state of Andhra Pradesh, right? So these three states have the maximum number of subscribers. Why is this important for us to understand? That, see, a lot of AI related, um, last year also we had questions around AI, right? So any sort of AI related initiatives will automatically become really important for your exam. So you have an you have a topic around, or you have a current affair around the judicial intervention, the AI intervention in judicial system. Then again, this the SOAR program, right? It basically um, is around AI, how the government wants you to be equipped with AI, and there has been a significant rise in number of subscribers this year. That's why it is really, really important, right? So again, something important, something really important that you can take away from this slide. All right, moving ahead with the next one is the Sajjan Kumar acquittal. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the 1984 Sikh riots, but Sajjan Kumar was basically a Congress leader, MP from Congress, right? And he was he was charged with murder charges were there on him for killing two people in New Delhi, in Janakpuri and Vikashpuri area, right? And it's been 40 years that charges around him. I mean, this case was pending, and after 40 years, after a lot of inhibitions, after a lot of witness testimonies, a lot of court procedure. Finally, after 40 years, Sajjan Kumar, who has been given acquittal in the 1984 Sikh riots. Now, why is this? Why is this basically important? It is important because, see, one, it is related to one member of parliament, right? Secondly, there have been around more than 3 decades that a case was pending, and still there is a lot of hue and cry around his acquittal, right? The family members of the victims and other, NGOs, they are also not very, I mean, they're not they are going to file an appeal against the order. There are a lot of protests happening around the same. So it is an important update around this issue, because after 40 years, finally a decision has been given by a Delhi district court and it has acquitted him. Yet he's not been released, right? He'll not be out of the jail. That is also one more very important thing. He'll not be out of the jail, because there are some more pressing charges, some more charges that have been pressed against him in other cases. So he will still be in the jail, but at least he has been acquitted in these in this 1984 anti-Sikh riots case, right? So yeah, that is there. Like I mentioned, yeah, Sajjan Kumar, he will remain convicted so far, because there are other riot related cases, but especially specifically to 1984 anti-Sikh riots, he has been acquitted. Okay, next is India's representation at the Gulf Food 2026. So, Gulf Food, what exactly is Gulf Food? Now, Gulf Food is India's, not India's, world's largest ever food and beverages exhibition, which is done at Dubai every year, right? Which happens at Dubai every year. And in the past 31 years, for the very first time, India has achieved the status of a partner country, right? So, which is again really interesting, a really important update, a very significant update, and very important for your CLAT preparation as well, right? So, for the very first time, like I mentioned, in 31 years. Now, um, in this Gulf food exhibition, India represented around 600 Indian companies have represented, right? A lot of Indian chefs were celebrated, including Chef Vikas Khanna and many more were celebrated, right? And a lot of Indian GI tagged, geographically indicated tagged rice, aromatic spices, nutritious millets, on many more premium teas, they were exhibited in the food exhibition, right? And like I mentioned, this has happened for the very first time in 31 years, right? So again, really important update from India's representation at global level for food and beverages as well. Okay. All right. Now let's just. Okay. Again, I'm very sure you might have come across this news whenever, if you are preparing, or if you are, if you're following, if you're reading newspapers every day, right? So, US basically attacked Venezuela and they captured the president of Venezuela, right? So, on 3rd of January, this happened early in January, on 3rd of January, right? The United States forces, they attacked Venezuela, and the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, along with his wife, right? They were captured in that entire military operation, and it was something which has been, globally challenged, and it's one very important international incident to understand how we are complying, how we are following the international law, right? So when you get question around this issue, you also need to be a little bit aware of the UN Charter, what exactly it says, and what happens if any country do not obey to those UN Charter rules, right? So which has been the same. Lot of global, a lot of countries have basically condemned this entire issue, and not just the president was captured, a lot of cases were also filed against him, right? A lot of charges were also filed against him, which included narco terrorism conspiracy, right? International cocaine trafficking and drug trafficking that is happening cross border, right? So basically, the president has said to the president of Venezuela has said to promote drug trafficking and cross-border trade of drugs. And he was captured on those bases, and charges have been filed against him around those cases, those issues. So this is something, again, if you have been following news properly, regularly, you might have come across this news as well. It's one very important update from January 2026. So Nicolas Maduro, along with his wife, were captured in a US military action. All right. The next update is that, or okay, so Donald Trump, he had initially imposed, or he has initially threatened a lot of European countries that he is going to impose tariffs, right? Around 10% tariffs on import and export. That is going to happen between US and those 8 European countries. And he later threatened that it's going to be increased to 25% also. And all of it was done to basically get control over Greenland. So Greenland basically is an autonomous it is an autonomous state, right? And it comes under the nation of Denmark, right? The kingdom of Denmark, basically. So now US wants to capture and take full control of Greenland to make sure, for security reasons in the Arctic region, and to make sure that any sort of war or other security compromises are done from Russia or China, then in that case, US has control over Greenland to basically prevent those sort of security issues. Now, for the same, a lot of times Denmark was approached for the same, and since Denmark was not ready to give up on the Greenland, on the territory of Greenland, Donald Trump, he basically announced that 8 European countries, including Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, and a lot more countries, were will face 10% tariff on trade that's going to happen. And by the month of June or July, it's going to be increased by 25%. Now, reportedly, I mean, the highlight basically here is that that threat has been taken back by Donald Trump. He has withdrawn that threat, and due to that, a lot of activities were observed in the international market. A lot of fluctuations around the rates and the prices of metals, including gold and silver, were observed in the international market, right? So that sort of impact these countries, or basically these sort of activities have on the global and international market, right? However, this tariff threat has now been withdrawn, and this has been reversed, right? Okay. Okay, next, of course, something really interesting is that Bangladesh has withdrawn from the T20 World Cup of 2026, right? The T20 World Cup is supposed to happen in the month of February, is going to start from the month of February, and India and Sri Lanka are the hosts this year, right? So, Bangladesh has basically mentioned that they are not going to participate in the World Cup. Why? Because they have their own security concerns for the match that have scheduled in India. So they do not want to come to India for playing any matches. So ICC in return, the International Cricket Council, they have basically denied. They said that we are not going to relocate any of the matches, right? So all the matches that have been already scheduled in India will happen in India only, to which Bangladesh, of course, did not agree, and they withdrew from the entire World Cup. Now, after that, Scotland has been included as Bangladesh's replacement in the tournament, right? So again, so if you are following the news, you'll see that Pakistan has also yet not confirmed that, their participation, and Iceland, who was also anticipated that if Pakistan will refuse, then Iceland will be the replacement for Pakistan in the World Cup. They are also refused to participate in the World Cup now, right? So now let's see if Pakistan is going to participate or not. But for now, Bangladesh has decided not to participate in the T20 World Cup. All right. And again, something really important, really unfortunate that has happened is the demise of Ajit Pawar. So now, Deputy CM of Maharashtra, Ajit Pawar, right, very recently, he sort of lost his life to a plane crash, right? So he was the Deputy CM of Maharashtra and a very senior leader of NCP, Nationalist Congress Party, right? And he has basically unfortunately lost his life in a plane crash, right? So, see, if whenever you will be reading about him or reading around this issue or this topic, also just to know how his political career has been. He has a lot of influence in Maharashtra government, and he was said to be one of the very influential leaders in Maharashtra, and a lot of impact is expected out of this unfortunate event that has happened, right? And he has a very important role in coalition politics, how Maharashtra has worked in association, in coalition with NCP and BJP, right? Ajit Pawar had a very important role around the same, right? And a lot of questions have also been asked, or been basically a lot of challenges around the aviation safety has also been put up. So how exactly is this going to turn out is something which we are of course going to observe. But so far, one very important update that has happened, one very important political development that has happened in the country in the month of January is Ajit Pawar's unfortunate demise, right? And lastly, but very important, especially from constitutional law perspective, is the UGC guidelines. So this year, UGC, University Grant Commission, right, which basically is responsible, the body which is responsible for university level education and how the universities are going to function, basically, right? They sort of gave some guidelines where they have defined the term discrimination, right? So in that case, what they have done is that they have mentioned that any sort of event or any sort of violence that happens around students belonging to SCs, STs, or reserved category, right? So, what is going to be the complaint mechanism for the same? A special helpline around the same has also been provided. So, any sort of violence or any such acts which happens um, promoting violence against such categories, against such communities, has been basically defined in the new UGC regulations. Now, a lot of protests, nationwide protests happen um, are being done by students of journal category, and then like that there are a lot of voice and recognition being given to the reserved categories. But what happens if any journal category student faces violence or any such event, unfortunate event happens to them? So no safeguards or no such mention of other students have been there in the UGC regulations. So for the same, nationwide protests have been happening. A lot of protests we saw happening in Lucknow and Delhi. Bharat Bandh was also announced for February 1st. Now, finally, just to make it all good, the Supreme Court finally had to intervene, right? And on January 29th, right, the Supreme Court has put a stay on these regulations, and it has also called that the regulations were quite vague. And there's absolutely no need to give interpretation or to give meaning to terms like these, what all UGC has basically introduced in their guidelines. So, very vague and very controversial guidelines have been given. So, in that case, for now, a stay has been put on the same, and the next hearing on the same will be done on 19th March, right? And while deciding this matter, what exactly will be tested? It will be tested whether these guidelines given by UGC are against Article 15, Article 21, and Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, right? Basically, if it is basically promoting any sort of discrimination, if it is against right to life and personal liberty of general category students. So around these issues, the Supreme Court is going to again hear this matter, and the legalities and the constitutionality of the UGC guidelines will be tested in detail in this matter that is going to happen. Now, anything that happens in this judgment eventually or finally what all is going to be the order, it's going to be really important um, for your legal reasoning section as well, right? Why? Because an interpretation, usually we get we come around a lot of cases where interpretation has been given to Article 14 or 15, Article 16 as well, right? And reservation policies are basically interpreted, but we do not get a lot of judgments where you know students of general category are also getting some sort of recognition or any representation. So this is going to be a judgment which is basically going to voice the grievances of general category students also, and some judgments around the same. The judgment basically is going to discuss a lot of other features around the same as well, right? Okay, right. So let me just quickly see. So yes, these were the most important highlights of the year 2000, of the month January 2026. So see, all these are somehow related to social, economic, political, international, and global affairs, everything, right? So in that case, whenever you're preparing, just make sure that you take a quick note of all these things, all these incidents that have happened, and you also prepare it properly, know the ins and outs of all the issues that we have discussed. Anything of that sort can be tested directly in your CLAT exam, directly or indirectly in your CLAT exam as well, right? So now let me see if there are any questions in the chat box. Is the legal maxims important according to these situations? Now, Animian, see, it depends. Now, if the question is being asked in your legal reasoning section, so usually in the passages only that the mention of that legal maxim will be there, right? If it is there, the meaning of the same will also be explained, and then you probably have to apply the maxim and then you have to answer it. So, yes, in that case, it can be there. When it is tested in your GK and current affairs section, usually the legal maxim directly will not be tested. The facts or the issues around the facts basically around that entire issue will be tested. So legal maxims will be only important if it is there in the passage and there is a applicant, there can be a application based question around the same. So yeah, any other questions guys around anything that you want to ask? All right, if no, then I think we're good to wrap the class, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I hope you found it useful. We'll meet soon again and we'll discuss more important issues, more important topics that have happened um, in the country, right? Which can be directly tested in your CLAT exam. So, this was my time with you. Let me know if you'll have any doubts, any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer. If no, then I'll wrap the class. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And keep watching our videos, keep watching. Stay tuned for more informative and more important content. And have a great, great weekend ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.